Very, very cool. So yeah, very dynamic environment, lots of moving parts there.
Uh-huh.
Getting back to Final Draft a little bit,
Uh-huh.
what was the impetus for actually kind of putting together a testing program for Final Draft? Were you there at the kind of, start
Uh-huh.
of that, or were you someone who came in and was like, okay, we have this beta testing program, here you go run it?
When I took on, as a little bit more of that, when I took on the role I took on with the product manager as desktop software and everything else that was there, there had already been a beta testing forum. It's platform is a strong word. I'm going to say there was a forum, user forum to get into. It was completely stale, out of date, as mothballed. We really weren't doing a good job with it. It was really hard to manage. It was impractical. So my boss at the time, the head of product there, wanted to implement a beta testing platform, to which I said no, because I didn't want to be added to this extra burden. Like, I know who's going to manage this. How am I going to do that with the time I already have? Like, what are you crazy? I need a new job on top of this. And happily was completely wrong, because I actually loved it, and it did free up time more than it took up time. That was actually huge. But that all became, critical to what we did. At first, I really didn't think we went in the Centercode. There really weren't a lot of other choices. I don't know if there are today, but none of them occur to me. That's for sure. The Centercode, because they had a lot there to provide with just the ease of use and the ease of distribution. One of the challenges for Final Draft and desktop software was, what's my license key? Like, how many times you got to answer that? And that was actually really easy to do in Centercode, and that made a huge difference. I really loved the way I think people demonstrated that to me. I was like, here's what you could do with the FedEx tracking numbers. I'm like, I want that for my numbers. So that made things easy. It was like, what's your number one support call? Can you solve that before you start? Yes. Okay. That does actually make a difference in whether or not I want to do this experiment of beta testing. So yeah, I was there at the beginning of this, if you count what the beginning of the successful part of beta data testing and customer validation was. And we went out small. I think we had like 50 people at first that we reached out to, and email lists for Final Draft are rather huge, so we could subset and start targeting a few people and get people to sign up. I think we got about 50 people at first, which was wonderful, and most of those people were pretty active users. And the whole time I was there, maybe 4 or 5 more years, they were almost all still active, and were people I was still actively talking to once in a while throughout that. So that worked out great, and we expanded. I can't give exact numbers at the time I left, but it was bigger. It wasn't gigantic, but it was bigger. It was enough. And that distribution was lovely, not just the numbers, but when you're doing desktop software, you have to post a build somewhere, not just a link, which has its disadvantages for sure. People have to download and install and all that, and there's Windows and there's Mac, and how come I can't install the Windows one on my Mac? Got some obvious choices there, but like, people don't know that stuff. So, and you actually want some of the people who don't know the difference on your beta team. You really do. So we actually split people into tiers for reasons like that, where we really wanted people who are so tech savvy, they know everything. They're going to use, power user of every single feature, where other people who I just don't know what to do except get in here and type. And I want them to be on too. I want them to be represented in it. When that person can understand everything I'm rolling out, I know I'm doing a pretty good job. But those early testers, the sort of alpha level, they were more useful early. And as you get to that delta phase, where you're about to roll out and you really want to know, does this work for everybody? Is this clear? Do I have to instruct the marketing team or tweak that YouTube video tutorial that we're going to put out? Does that need to accommodate something, or did I accomplish this in the UI that I hoped I would?
I remember the first time I think I met Pete, our CEO said, "Hey, you got to go meet Pete at Final Draft." And I'm like, I look it up online. I'm like, what? Why do I? You've got a lot of customers. Not to think that Pete's great, but I'm like, why? What's so great about this? And he's like, check it out, look at it. And I look at him, it just looks like a software for writing. What's not a big deal. And then I think I met with Pete, and he's obviously great. He's very funny. He's got a nice comedic background. He's a good, smart person. And then he told me about some of the testers that were there and who his audience was. I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
That's freaking cool. So like
Yeah.
when I talk to people about Centercode, it's like, oh yeah, Centercode's cool. But then I talk about our customers, like, oh, like, wow. And it's like, that's the feeling I got when I talked to Pete. I'm like, your customers, the people you're serving, seems they're so much bigger than the company that you're working for the most part. So that was eye-opening for me when I first met you. Like, you're talking about high profile people giving you feedback on an early version of a product.
Yes.
So
no, you're right. I mean, there were definitely some A-list celebrities mixed in there, and some other people who were, I don't think they're around anymore on that. But at the time, I found a couple of people who really wanted to talk, and I said, like, if you really want to do this, you can get in. Those people don't tend to stay involved all that long, but it was really cool. And Final Draft in general, just, you do get people who make the big movies. I mean, those people are using Final Draft, so they are customers. Some subset of them are very eager to talk, and very eager to be a part of it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and that must be the big advantage. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, I was saying, like, having your voice, like you were talking, A-list or big players, they want their feedback listened to and their stuff implemented. They want their ideas. That's a channel, right? Like, this is the value. Okay, I got to put in some work to give you feedback, but I'm going to make something better for me. I want to give you feedback to make it better for me and make it easier on myself.
Yes.
So it's a little friction, but big payoff kind of.
Yes,
cool thing.
It was cool. At one point, I talked to, I also used to run the Final Draft podcast, Right On.
Mm-hmm.
So for many years, I had that. I had one guest on a couple times, Stan Shervin, who I'll give a shout out to. He's a great guy. He wrote Moneyball, among other things, and wrote some really cool stuff. But he even asked me on the podcast on the air at one point, like, this is the feature I really need you to make while I'm doing this podcast. Can you just get that to happen? He was really excited to have that done when we got it shipped. But user feedback getting listened to, that's the dream.